When Amir first saw the little brick house on Pine Street, he felt like his long search was finally over. He had worked hard for years, saving every extra coin, cutting out luxuries, and even working late shifts just so one day he could own a place of his own. The house was not grand, but it had a neat front yard, a sturdy roof, and a tall oak tree that stretched its branches over the driveway. To Amir, it was more than just a building. It was freedom. The papers were signed, the deal was closed, and the official move-in date was marked for the following week. But Amir's old lease ended earlier than expected, and the landlord needed the apartment cleared out. Amir decided it was not a big problem. The house was his now, after all. He packed his boxes into a small rented truck and drove down to Pine Street one bright morning, ready to begin this new chapter a little earlier than planned. As he pulled into the driveway, Amir noticed curtains moving in the house across the street. A woman with sharp eyes and stiff posture stood there, glaring at him like he was an intruder. She crossed her arms and marched out to the sidewalk before he had even turned off the truck's engine. "Excuse me," she said loudly. "Who are you, and why are you here?" Amir stepped out, brushing dust from his jeans. "Hello. My name is Amir. I just bought this house. I'm moving in today." The woman narrowed her eyes. "That's not possible. Move-in dates are carefully scheduled here. We don't allow early arrivals without notice." Amir blinked. "But the house is mine now. I signed the papers. I thought it was fine if I brought my things." The woman stood taller. "I am Karen, the head of the Homeowners Association. Around here, we have rules. And one rule is that nobody moves in before the official date." Amir felt uneasy but stayed calm. "I didn't know there was such a rule. I'm not disturbing anyone. I'm just moving boxes." Karen huffed. "Rules are rules. If I allow you, then tomorrow everyone will ignore them. This community values order." She spun around and stomped back toward her house, muttering under her breath. Amir shook his head. He had heard stories about strict neighbors, but he hoped this was just a misunderstanding. He carried the first box inside, placing it in the empty living room. The smell of fresh paint and clean wood made him smile. For him, it was a moment of joy, no matter how much Karen tried to cloud it. By midday, the truck was half empty. Amir paused to drink water, wiping sweat from his forehead. Suddenly, flashing lights reflected off the windows. A police car pulled up in front of his driveway. Karen stood proudly nearby, pointing at him as if she had just caught a thief. The officer stepped out. "Good afternoon, sir. We received a call about a suspicious person moving into this property." Amir's stomach dropped, but he quickly explained. "Officer, I'm the new owner. Here are the papers. I was just moving in a little early because I had to leave my old place." The officer studied the documents, then glanced at Karen. "Everything seems fine. He owns the house. There's no problem here." Karen gasped. "But it's against the rules. The HOA requires notice. You have to stop him." The officer shook his head politely. "Ma'am, this is a civil matter. He owns the property. He can move in whenever he wants." Amir tried not to smile too wide as Karen's face turned red. The officer wished him good luck with the move and left. Karen, however, did not. She stayed, fuming. "This is not the end," she hissed, pointing a finger at Amir. "If you think you can just break rules and walk away, you are mistaken. I'll make sure the HOA knows about this." Amir calmly picked up another box. "I'm not breaking anything. I'm just living in my home." Karen stormed back to her house, slamming the door so hard that it rattled across the street. Amir stood there in silence for a moment, then laughed softly. He knew he had just stepped into a new kind of challenge. By evening, most of his boxes were inside. He sat on the floor of his new living room, eating a simple meal from a paper bag. The house was quiet except for the distant hum of crickets. Yet in the back of his mind, he could feel the weight of Karen's glare. She was not finished with him. That much was clear. Still, Amir was not someone who bent easily. Life had already taught him how to face difficult people without losing his patience. He leaned against the wall, looking around at the empty rooms and imagining how he would fill them with furniture, books, and warmth. For him, the house represented hope. For Karen, it seemed to represent control. Two very different worlds had just collided on Pine Street, and Amir suspected that the real battle had only begun. The next morning, Amir woke early. His back was sore from carrying boxes, but the excitement of owning his first home made him feel light on his feet. He brewed tea in a small pot he had unpacked and sat on the front steps with his cup. The sun rose slowly over Pine Street, painting the houses in golden light. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. But that peace did not last. Across the street, Karen's door opened. She stepped out dressed in neat clothes, holding a clipboard as if she were a general preparing for battle. She did not wave or greet him. Instead, she began writing on her paper while glaring in his direction. Amir guessed she was making notes about his so-called violations. He sighed and reminded himself that it was not worth losing his temper. He finished his tea and went back inside. Today's goal was to organize the living room and set up his small bed. As he worked, he noticed shadows moving outside his window. He peeked through the curtain. Karen was talking to two other neighbors, pointing at his house with sharp gestures. They looked uncertain, nodding slowly as she spoke. Amir shook his head. He could already see what she was doing. She was building an army of complaints against him. By noon, he had unpacked most of the essentials. He was carrying an empty box to the recycling bin when he heard footsteps on the sidewalk. Karen approached, her face tight with determination. "Amir," she said, as if she had known him for years. "I spoke with the neighbors. They agree that moving in early sets a bad example. It shows you do not respect our community." Amir set the box down calmly. "Karen, I am not harming anyone. The house belongs to me. I had no choice but to move in sooner. The officer yesterday said it was fine." She pressed her lips together. "The police do not control the HOA. We do. If you don't follow the rules, there will be consequences." Amir felt his patience being tested. "I want to live here peacefully. I will respect fair rules. But I cannot follow something I was never told about." Karen scribbled on her clipboard. "I'll be filing a report. Don't be surprised when you receive a letter." With that, she marched off. Amir let out a long breath. He could already tell she would not stop until she got her way. Later that afternoon, he was surprised to hear another knock on his door. He opened it carefully, expecting Karen again. Instead, a friendly older man stood there with a gentle smile. "Hello," the man said. "My name is Mr. Lewis. I live 2 houses down. Welcome to the neighborhood." Amir felt relief. Finally, someone with kindness. "Thank you. It's nice to meet you. I was worried after yesterday that everyone here might dislike me." Mr. Lewis chuckled. "Oh, don't worry. Not all of us are like her. Karen thinks she runs the street, but most of us try to stay out of her drama. I heard she even called the police on you. That was unnecessary." Amir nodded. It was a shock, but the officer handled it well. The older man looked around, lowering his voice. "She does this to almost everyone. She picks on small things until people give up fighting back. But you seem patient. That may help you." Amir appreciated the advice. "I will do my best. I just want a peaceful life." After Mr. Lewis left, Amir felt a little lighter. Not everyone was against him. But still, the tension was growing. He could see Karen's shadow moving behind her curtains each time he stepped outside. That evening, Amir sat at his kitchen table, going through the packet of documents from the house purchase. He noticed the map of the property lines and studied it carefully. Something caught his eye. The boundary near Karen's driveway was not straight. It curved slightly, giving his land a strip of ground that almost reached her driveway. Amir leaned closer, tracing the line with his finger. He had not noticed this detail before. It was small, but it gave him an idea. For now, he set it aside, but the thought lingered. Just as he was rolling up the papers, there was another knock at the door. His heart sank. When he opened it, there stood Karen again, this time with two men beside her. They looked like HOA board members, wearing matching badges. Karen spoke with authority. "Amir, we are here to formally warn you. The HOA does not allow early move-ins. You must wait until the official date. Otherwise, we will fine you." Amir folded his arms. "This is my property. The officer already told you I'm allowed to live here. You cannot fine me for something that is not in the official rules." The two men exchanged glances. One of them cleared his throat. "He is right, Karen. Unless it is written, we cannot enforce it." Karen's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "He broke the tradition." "Tradition is not law," Amir said firmly. "If you want peace, I am ready. But I will not accept threats." The men muttered excuses and left, leaving Karen furious on the sidewalk. She glared at Amir, her face red. "You'll regret this," she whispered before storming away. Amir closed the door and leaned against it. He knew the battle was far from over. Yet deep inside, he also knew something Karen did not. He had just discovered a hidden advantage, and when the time came, he would use it. Days passed, but the tension on Pine Street only grew heavier. Amir tried to focus on setting up his home. He hung curtains, built shelves, and even planted a few flowers in the front yard. Each time he stepped outside, however, he felt Karen's eyes watching from across the street. She never missed a chance to remind him that, in her mind, he was the enemy of order. One afternoon, as Amir returned from buying groceries, he found a paper taped to his front door. It was a notice from the HOA, stamped in red, accusing him of violating community standards. The letter claimed his lawn was not properly maintained and that he had created disturbance by moving in early. Amir laughed bitterly. His lawn was neat, and he had never played loud music or caused trouble. It was obvious Karen had pushed this through. He folded the notice and placed it on the table, determined not to let anger control him. The next day, as Amir was painting the living room, he heard voices outside. He peeked out and saw Karen again with two board members. This time, they were talking to neighbors in front yards, pointing toward Amir's house and shaking their heads. She was gathering supporters. That evening, Mr. Lewis knocked on Amir's door once more. "I thought you should know," the old man said kindly, "Karen has been telling people you're planning to change the look of your house in ways that break the rules. She says you're a danger to property values." Amir was shocked. "But I haven't even finished unpacking. I have no such plans." "I know," Mr. Lewis replied. "But she is good at twisting stories. She makes people afraid, then offers to protect them. That's how she stays in control." Amir thanked him for the warning. After Mr. Lewis left, Amir sat in silence, thinking. He had moved here for peace, but Karen was turning everything upside down. Still, his father had once told him, when a storm comes, don't run. Build a shelter and wait. The storm will pass. Amir smiled at the memory. He would not run. The following weekend, the HOA held a community meeting in the local clubhouse. Amir decided to attend, though he knew it would not be easy. The room was full of neighbors, some chatting warmly, others whispering while throwing glances at him. At the front stood Karen, wearing a blazer as if she were a judge. When the meeting started, she wasted no time. "Fellow homeowners," she said, her voice ringing across the hall, "we have a serious matter to discuss. A new resident has broken our traditions, disrespected our rules, and created disruption on Pine Street." She gestured toward Amir. "He moved in early, ignored notices, and continues to act without approval." Murmurs spread through the room. Amir stood slowly, his heart steady. "With respect, I need to correct this. I own my home. I was forced to move in early because my lease ended. The officer who came said I did nothing wrong. I have respected this neighborhood and caused no harm." A man in the crowd raised his hand. "But the HOA sets the rules, not the police." Amir nodded calmly. "Then show me the rule I broke, written in the official book. I will gladly follow it." The room went quiet. Karen's lips tightened. She shuffled her papers but found nothing. "Some things are unwritten," she snapped. "They are understood traditions." "Tradition cannot be used as punishment," Amir replied. "If you want respect, rules must be clear and fair. Otherwise, they are only tools for control." For a moment, silence hung in the room. Some neighbors looked at Amir with new eyes. Others avoided his gaze. Karen, however, was furious. After the meeting, as people left, a young couple approached Amir. "We agree with you," the woman whispered. "Karen has been too strict for years. Maybe someone needed to speak up." Amir thanked them, but he knew this would make Karen even more determined to crush him. When he returned home that night, he unrolled the property line map again. His eyes rested on the narrow strip of land near Karen's driveway. It was legally his. He thought about how fiercely Karen defended rules that were not written, while ignoring the rules that were real and recorded. A small smile tugged at his lips. Perhaps the law itself could teach her a lesson she would never forget. The very next morning, Amir went to the county office. He asked for detailed surveys and maps of his property. The clerk confirmed what Amir had already seen. That strip of land beside Karen's driveway was part of his lot. It was small but important, because without it, Karen's driveway was incomplete. As Amir walked out of the office, papers in hand, he felt a new sense of strength. He had no desire to be cruel, but he was tired of being bullied. If Karen wanted to play with rules, then he would play too. Only his rules would be real, backed by law, not by threats. When Amir returned home, he saw Karen standing in her yard, arms crossed. She called out, "Enjoying your stay, troublemaker?" Amir raised the papers in his hand and smiled politely. "Yes, very much. And soon, things will become even more interesting." Karen frowned, unsure of what he meant. But Amir already knew. The battle was changing, and this time, he had the advantage. The week after the HOA meeting, Amir felt a change inside him. He had arrived on Pine Street hoping for quiet days and a fresh start, but now it seemed fate had placed him in the middle of a storm. Yet instead of weakening him, the storm gave him focus. He knew Karen would never stop unless he stood his ground. Each evening, after work, Amir studied the property documents he had collected from the county office. The papers showed every line, every measurement, every inch of land that legally belonged to him. The more he looked at the curved boundary near Karen's driveway, the more certain he became. That strip of ground was not just a detail. It was power. One night, Amir sat outside under the oak tree, his notebook in hand. He sketched ideas of what he could do with that piece of land. He thought about planting a hedge, building a fence, or even creating a small garden. Each option, if done legally, would change Karen's daily life. As he drew, Mr. Lewis strolled by on his evening walk. "Working late?" the old man asked kindly. Amir smiled. "Just making plans." I found something interesting in my property lines. Mr. Lewis tilted his head. Ah, I see. You've noticed the curve near Karen's driveway. Yes, that's yours. Many years ago, the land was divided strangely. Most people never cared, but Karen will care very much if you use it. Amir nodded. I don't wish to be cruel. But I must protect myself. She keeps attacking without reason. Mr. Lewis gave a slow smile. Sometimes the best way to stop a bully is to show them their limits. If you use what is yours, she cannot say a word. Those words stayed with Amir. For the first time since moving in, he felt he had a real shield. The next day, Amir visited a hardware store. He walked through the aisles, checking prices of wood, cement, and fencing materials. He also picked up seed packets and gardening tools. To the store clerk, it was just a normal purchase. To Amir, it was the beginning of a plan. When he returned home with supplies, Karen appeared immediately. She was like a hawk, always ready to swoop down. What are you building? She demanded, marching across the street. Amir placed the bags on his porch and answered calmly. Just improving my property. Nothing against the rules. Karen's eyes narrowed. You need HOA approval before any changes. Do you hear me? You cannot just do whatever you like. Amir opened one of the bags and showed her the seed packets. Gardening is allowed, isn't it? Or is there a rule that says I cannot grow plants? Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She turned sharply and stormed back to her house. Amir watched her go, his heart steady. She had power only when people feared her. That evening, Amir marked the edge of his land with bright flags. The strip near Karen's driveway looked even more obvious when outlined. He stood there, imagining her face when she realized what he was planning. Over the next few days, Amir began small tasks. He dug the soil, planted flowers along the line, and prepared wooden posts. Each time Karen came outside, she stared at him, but she could say nothing. Neighbors slowed their cars to watch, curious about what was happening. Some even smiled, clearly enjoying the sight of Karen being challenged. One afternoon, as Amir hammered a post into the ground, the young couple who had spoken to him after the HOA meeting walked over. We love what you're doing, the woman said. It's about time someone stood up to her. Amir thanked them but kept his focus. I just want peace. But peace requires space, and this is my space. As the project grew, Karen's frustration became more visible. She stood on her porch shouting about permits and approvals, but Amir ignored her. He knew the law was on his side. He had the county maps, the purchase documents, and the right to use every inch of his land. By the weekend, Amir had finished planting a thick row of bushes along the strip. He also set posts for a wooden fence that would soon follow. The plants were small now, but in time, they would grow tall and dense. And the posts already made one thing clear: Karen's driveway no longer had easy access. That night, as Amir watered the new plants, Karen marched across the street. Her face was red, her voice sharp. You're blocking me. This is harassment. Amir stood straight, holding the hose loosely. No. I'm gardening on my land. The survey papers are clear. If you doubt it, you may check with the county office. Karen froze. For once, she had no quick reply. She turned on her heel and stormed away without another word. Amir watched her retreat, then turned back to his plans. He knew she would not give up. She would try new tricks, maybe even more HOA letters. But he also knew something had changed. For the first time, she had been forced to step back. As the stars appeared above Pine Street, Amir felt a calm he had not felt since moving in. The battle was not over, but the ground beneath his feet was strong. He smiled to himself. Karen had called the police on him, spread lies, and tried to shame him in front of neighbors. Yet in the end, it was the quiet lines of a property map that gave him the upper hand. And soon, the fence would stand as a reminder, this was his home, and no one, not even Karen, could take that away. The sound of hammering echoed on Pine Street as Amir worked on his fence. Each strike of the hammer felt like a step toward freedom. The posts were firmly set, the cross beams laid out, and soon the final panels would close the gap. Neighbors slowed down as they passed, some whispering to each other, others smiling quietly. Everyone knew what was happening, though no one dared to speak loudly in front of Karen. Karen, on the other hand, was like a storm. Each day she stood on her porch, arms crossed, barking warnings. You need approval for that. The HOA will fine you. This is harassment. You will regret this. But Amir did not respond. He simply worked, steady and calm, knowing every action was backed by the law. One afternoon, as Amir painted the wooden panels, Karen marched across the street with a folder in her hand. She waved papers in front of him. These are official complaints, she said, her voice rising. You are building too close to my driveway. You're blocking my property. Amir set down his brush and wiped his hands on a cloth. Karen, I have the official survey. This strip belongs to me. If you disagree, you may take it to the county. But until then, I will finish what I started. Her face turned red. This is an attack. You are targeting me. Amir met her glare with calm eyes. I am protecting myself. You brought this fight when you tried to push me out of my own home. For once, Karen had no comeback. She turned away and stormed back to her house, slamming the door so hard the sound echoed down the street. That evening, Mr. Lewis came over carrying 2 cold drinks. He handed one to Amir with a smile. You are braver than most, young man. Many people here gave up when Karen pushed them. But you stood firm. That fence will change everything. Amir took the drink gratefully. I don't like fighting, but she left me no choice. This is the only way she will understand. Mr. Lewis chuckled. Oh, she understands already. She just doesn't want to admit it. Over the next few days, Amir completed the fence. He painted it a warm brown color, blending with the oak tree in his yard. On his side, he planted more flowers and shrubs, creating a small green border that looked peaceful and welcoming. But on Karen's side, the fence stood tall and unyielding. Her driveway, once wide and easy, now had a narrow opening. Parking her large SUV suddenly became a daily struggle. The first morning she tried to pull in, neighbors watched from their windows as her tires screeched against the curb. She had to back up twice before managing to squeeze into the driveway. Her frustration was clear for everyone to see. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Some whispered that Amir had gone too far, but others quietly cheered. The young couple down the street even stopped by to bring him homemade cookies. We think it's fair, the woman said with a smile. She has bullied people for years. Maybe now she will stop. Amir thanked them kindly but reminded himself to stay humble. He did not want to be seen as cruel. His goal was not revenge. It was peace. But Karen did not see it that way. The next HOA meeting was tense. She stood at the front, waving photos of the fence. This man has blocked my driveway. This is unacceptable. The HOA must demand he take it down. Murmurs filled the room. Some neighbors nodded, but others shook their heads. Then Amir stood, holding his folder of documents. This fence is on my land. Here are the maps, signed and stamped by the county office. I followed the law. If Karen believes otherwise, she can take the matter to court. But until then, the fence stays. The board members examined the papers. After a long silence, one of them said, he is correct. The property line supports him. We cannot force him to remove it. The room grew quiet. Karen's face turned pale, then red. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She sat down, defeated, while whispers spread through the hall. For Amir, it was not a victory to celebrate loudly. It was simply justice. He returned home that night feeling lighter. For the first time since moving in, he felt Pine Street belonged to him as much as anyone else. Yet he also knew Karen's anger was far from finished. She would not give up easily. She would look for new ways to challenge him. But Amir had learned something important. With patience, calm, and the law on his side, he could withstand her storms. As the days passed, Amir began to enjoy his home more. He read books under the oak tree, sipped tea on his porch, and greeted neighbors who slowly warmed to him. The flowers along the fence began to grow, softening the wooden line with touches of color. But each time Karen pulled her SUV into the narrow driveway, scraping her tires and muttering curses under her breath, Amir was reminded of one simple truth. He had not chosen this fight, but he had ended it in the only way Karen could not ignore. And though she still glared at him from across the street, the balance of power on Pine Street had shifted forever. The following week, Pine Street buzzed with quiet whispers. The tall wooden fence on Amir's property had become the new subject of conversation. Some called it bold, others called it fair, but all agreed it was something Karen had never expected. For years, she had ruled the neighborhood with her clipboard and sharp tongue. Now, she was the one forced to adjust. Amir noticed how the balance had shifted. When he greeted neighbors, more of them smiled back. Some even stopped to chat, something they had avoided before. It was as if the fence had not only blocked Karen's driveway but also broken the invisible wall of fear she had built around everyone. One morning, Amir was watering his flowers when Karen came out with her keys in hand. She got into her SUV and tried to pull out of her driveway. The gap was tight, and she scraped her tire against the post again. The loud screech made her face twist with anger. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, some chuckling softly. Karen jumped out of the vehicle and pointed at Amir. "You think this is clever, don't you? You think you've won?" Amir turned off the hose and faced her calmly. "Karen, I built a fence on my land. That is all. If you have proof it is not mine, show it. Otherwise, I suggest you adapt." Her hands shook as she held her keys. "You're destroying this neighborhood." Amir shook his head. "No, I'm protecting myself. I am not the one who called the police on a new neighbor or spread false rumors. I just wanted peace." For the first time, Karen had no response. She climbed back into her SUV and struggled to back out of the driveway. The sound of laughter carried faintly from one of the houses down the street. Karen sped away in frustration, leaving behind a silence that felt almost like relief. That evening, Amir received a knock on his door. It was the young couple who had supported him earlier. They brought a basket of fresh bread. "We thought you might like this," the woman said with a smile. Amir invited them in, and they sat at his small table. "Thank you," he said. "I appreciate the kindness. I did not mean to cause trouble here, but I could not let her push me around." The young man nodded. "Most people here gave up long ago. Karen has been controlling things for years. But when you stood up, it gave us hope. Maybe now she'll stop." Amir thought for a moment. "Maybe she will, maybe she won't. But either way, I will not bend. This is my home now, and I will guard it." The couple smiled, and for the first time since moving in, Amir felt he had real friends on Pine Street. A few days later, another HOA meeting was called. This time, the atmosphere was different. People walked in curious, whispering to each other about what would happen. Karen came in late, carrying a stack of papers, her eyes burning with frustration. She took the floor immediately. "The fence is a danger," she announced. "It reduces visibility, it blocks my property, and it sets a bad example. If we allow this, anyone could do whatever they want. Whispers spread through the room. Some nodded, but others looked tired of the same speech. Then Amir stood, holding his folder of documents once again. I respect this community, Amir began. I respect fair rules. But what I built is legal. Here is the survey, signed by the county. This land is mine. I ask no one for permission to live peacefully in my own home, and I ask no one for permission to use what is rightfully mine. He opened the folder and spread copies of the survey on the table. Board members leaned forward to study them. The lines were clear. The strip was his. Finally, one board member looked up and spoke. There is no violation here. The fence is on his property. The HOA has no grounds to act. The room filled with murmurs again, but this time many voices agreed. Karen tried to protest, waving her hands wildly, but the board member shook his head. Enough. We cannot punish him for using his land. Karen's face went pale. She sank into her seat, glaring at Amir, but her power was slipping. For the first time, people openly questioned her authority. When the meeting ended, Amir walked out into the cool night air. A few neighbors approached him, shaking his hand, some thanking him quietly. It was not just about the fence anymore. It was about standing up to fear. That night, as Amir sat on his porch with a cup of tea, he looked at the fence, strong and straight under the moonlight. It was more than wood and nails. It was a line drawn not only on the ground but also in the balance of the neighborhood. He thought of Karen, still fuming across the street. He knew she was not finished. But he also knew something important: whatever she tried next, she could no longer scare him. The big reveal had happened. Everyone now understood the truth. The fence was legal, the property was his, and Karen's control was broken. Amir leaned back in his chair, breathing deeply. For the first time since moving in, he felt not just like a resident of Pine Street, but like someone who belonged.